Okay, everyone, welcome to part two of the Cultural Awareness Training Brief. Glad to have you back, and I hope you just kind of reflected on this stuff and kind of thought of your own strategies to increase your own cultural awareness. These are strategies, like practical examples, I guess is what I meant to say. So some strategies to increase cultural awareness continued. I probably should have put this in the last video, my apologies, so you guys had more information to draw upon, but maybe see if you wrote down one of these as something you can do. Understand that not all people identify with their own cultural or religious background, which we covered earlier. Understand that culture itself is a fluid entity, which we covered again. Increase your knowledge about different cultural practices and issues through cultural background information sessions and or resources and cultural awareness training, which we're doing right now. And understand the importance of appropriate communication. Maybe you guys listed one of those strategies while you had some time for yourself. But the main part of video 2 or this brief part 2 is race and ethnicity. These are the main things we're going to be talking about in this shorter portion of the brief. So race. Race is a division of human beings identified by the possession of traits that are transmissible by descent and that are sufficient to characterize persons possessing these traits as a distinctive human genotype. So this is what the DoD's definition of race is. Let's look at some other definitions of race as well, which is from John Farley, Majority Minority. The race is a group of people who are generally considered to be physically distinct in some way. They could be different types of things like skin color, nose, color of eyes, from other groups, and are generally considered by themselves and or others to be a distinct group. So these are pretty similar definitions, but race is a pretty complicated thing. Race is extremely malleable, and the definitions of race have varied throughout the centuries, are different. But we're going to be kind of going off of this idea of race from the DoD objective. Like in history, you can see like the Anglophile race, so that's like all people who descended from Britain. But some people will even say like the English-speaking people, that's like a race. So people use different definitions of race throughout history. But the main one we're going to be kind of pivoting off of is this DoD directive one. But we're going to be covering more on ethnicity as opposed to race today. So ethnicity is a cultural concept in which a large number of people who shared learned or acquired traits in close social interaction regard themselves and are regarded by others as constituting a single group on that basis. Here we have Vincent Perillo again, strangers to these shores. So here is so we can kind of understand the difference between race and ethnicity. Here is the main thing. Ethnicity is based on cultural characteristics. Most of the things that we saw for race, most definitions for race, is based off of like physical features or like these transmissible traits that can be passed down. Ethnicity is cultural. So here are the cultural characteristics, like customs, traditions, and language. That's what makes up ethnicity. That's kind of how it's different from race. So cultural characteristics, in summation, cultural characteristics for ethnicity. Race is more like physical attributes and traits that can be passed down. Yes. So, in order to obtain data that represents more accurately how Americans see themselves, the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, developed 5 race and 2 ethnic groups to provide common language, provide uniformity, and provide comparability of data for research. Like I said, we have like all these different definitions of race, and ethnicity is a little bit less confusing, but like race is very confusing if you look at it in like the historical, like through like a very historical lens. So we actually have it pretty simplified, so we're all speaking the same language. We're all speaking the Army language here. So OMB takes into account social/cultural characteristics and ancestry. So this is just general information that's good to know. So these are the 5 race groups that have been established for the Army, so we can all speak the same language: American Indian or Alaskan Native, and then there's Asian, Black, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, and white, and then the 2 ethnic groups are Hispanic or Latino and non-Hispanic or Latino. Summary. So here we are kind of closing in on the end. Being aware of different cultures may help you realize the benefits of a multicultural working environment and possibly identify patterns of discrimination. Understanding different cultures, as well as the different race and ethnicities, is important to help us suspend our own biases and as much as possible and to take a cultural relativity approach. As defenders of freedom, we must not let our own cultural biases get in the way of understanding the lives of other people. This is a very difficult task given the emotionally charged feelings and deep beliefs that most people have concerning different cultures, races, and ethnicities. Especially that. However, suspending these attitudinal barriers in order to gain a better understanding of the phenomena is worth the effort. We, especially in the first brief, discussed a lot of the merits of being culturally competent and culturally aware. And then also, it's not just a good thing. Like, there are negative components that can happen, such as overall negative culture, discrimination, sexism, that can happen in the workplace if we don't apply kind of the knowledge and kind of the strategies that we learned or refreshed ourselves on today throughout our lives in the Army. And just overall, you want to be a good person. So again, summary, we focused on the concept of culture and cultural awareness more in the first brief, or like almost all in the first brief, and then we focused on race and ethnicity and OMB race and ethnic groups in this brief, so video 2. And then below, I just want to point you guys out to some of those resources. You see a lot of the people that they referenced throughout the slideshow. Like, I remember Farley was there with the majority-minority relations. So you kind of see that that's a little bit of an older source. So that's kind of interesting, the DoD source. We can check the date on that, just kind of see what's a little bit more up to date. Oh yeah, look, 2003. So, a little bit more up-to-date version of that. You scroll down, here's Perillo, The Strangers to the Shore, 7th edition, also a 2003, but then they have some more up-to-date stuff. So feel free to use any of these resources. If you're like super curious about this, I'm sure there's even more up-to-date resources that you can kind of try to get. And you can maybe ask myself, or maybe ask your platoon or section or squad leader, depending. If you're really curious to get access to these sources. I just want to thank you guys for your time. I wish I could open it up to questions, but unfortunately in this format, that's not really a thing. But thank you for your time, and have a good rest of your drill. Bye-bye.